All right. We're back. We're back. Welcome to another episode of the Masterful Conversations podcast, where we talk about and learn about leadership from the men who have served in a regular lodge of free and accepted Masons. I am Brother Matthew Wagstaff, a proud past master of Eureka Lodge number 36 out of Rochester, New York. We're currently serving as my worshipful master is Brother Jermaine Myers, and I'm with.
I am Past Master Mark Alexander out of Sons of Kings Lodge number 123, Brooklyn, New York. We're currently serving as our worship master and counting the days to get out of. At this point is brother Kevin Parker.
We both hail from the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the state of New York. We're currently serving as our Grand Master is Most Worshipful Darren M. Morton. We have a great guest today from another jurisdiction, so we were able to check off
Another
another state. We got
mm-hmm.
two states, two for one today, uh, with our guest today. And so before we introduce our guest, we do have a quick announcement.
Yes, we wanted to give a congratulations to our Grand Lodge and the Grand Chapter, Eureka Grand Chapter, New York, for celebration they just had 180 years of Prince Hall Masonry, New York, and 130 years of the Order Eastern Star here in New York. We had a great celebration this past Saturday, or a couple of Saturdays ago about that. But congratulations, and hopefully we continue to get nothing but bigger, better, and stronger.
Absolutely. Congratulations. 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 All right. Quick disclaimer.
The views and opinions of this show are our own, do not express the views or opinions of our respective Grand Lodge or Lodge. This show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. If you have any questions, please consult the proper officer in your prospective jurisdiction.
Absolutely. So today we have with us past master Michael Paul. He holds membership in multiple lodges. So just bear with me here as I go through the list of the lodges that he is currently a member of. So he is currently a member of Perfect Union Lodge number one out of New Orleans, Polar Star number four out of New Orleans,
One.
Chevantes Lodge
Mhm.
number five out of New Orleans, Germania Lodge number 46 out of New Orleans, and Hiram Tacoma Lodge number 10 out of the District of Columbia. So those first four lodges were out of the Grand Lodge of Louisiana, and the last lodge, Hiram Tacoma number 10, was from the Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia. Past Master Paul served as worshipful master on both the Scottish and York Rite side. He was past master of Friends of Harmony, number 58, which is no longer an active lodge, but he served as worshipful master in the years 1980 and 1990. He also served on the Scottish Rite side as past master of Chevantes Lodge number 5 in the year 2018. So he's definitely had some years in masonry. I think I heard he served over 50 years in the craft. So congratulations on that. I think you might be the second brother we've had on the lodge in the on the show that's been in the craft over 50 years.
Yeah,
And so
maybe so.
a
Mhm.
lot to learn. I'm looking forward to our conversation, learning about leadership and your journey through the craft.
Well, he also, which you didn't mention, he also was holds I don't know hold membership, but helped with a lot of Masonic journals and magazines, also like editor and chief and things like that. So he has that type of leadership perspective also.
Absolutely. And he has a show on YouTube, the New Orleans Scottish Rite College. So the New Orleans Scottish Rite College on YouTube. Check that out. Like and
Definitely.
subscribe. Check into his knowledge and his education on that YouTube channel. Are you also a 33rd?
No.
Okay. So welcome, Past Master Paul, to the show. We appreciate having you here, and we're looking forward to learning more about you. So this show is about leadership, and so we would love to hear about your journey. You were worshipful master first back in 1980. So if you can give us a little bit of background about who you are, when you were raised, what lodge were you raised in, and if you can remember, who the worshipful master was back then, any names you can sort of bring back to life for us, that would be helpful. But we want to know a little bit about your background, when you were raised, and your journey to the East the first time.
Well, I joined when I was 21, and I knew I wanted to join since I was a very young child. My grandfather was a past master of Friends of Harmony, number 58. And he was the reason I joined Masonry. And so he passed away long before I joined. But I joined in 1975. I was 21, and they wouldn't let me join any earlier, so I had to wait till I was 21. And I joined, and I was fascinated by the work and the philosophy. It was pretty much exactly what I was looking for. And it turns out I had a knack for ritual. And I didn't know that ahead of time, but as we're going through learning the work, I had a, so I, in Louisiana, they have what they call a certificate of proficiency. And I earned my certificate of proficiency right after I received my Master Mason degree. And from that, I moved quickly through the chairs, a lot quicker than maybe should have been. But
Mm.
I spent a half a year as junior deacon, and I moved to senior deacon, and I went to junior one and became worshipful master. So I was like 25 when
Mm.
I
Wow.
joined.
Mm. When you
I
became
mean,
master.
mean when I became master, and when I joined, the guy who was master was I remember Cliff Prendergast. He
Mm-hmm.
was a sergeant on the New Orleans Police Department,
Oh wow.
and we'd ride around in his police car going over the work. And that was amazing for me. I was very
Nice.
surprised, and I knew I did not want to become a policeman, but uh, I respected him, and
Mm-hmm.
he was one of my early mentors. There were several others. Fred Siegel was the treasurer of the lodge. He was he was my Scottish Rite teacher. He was treasurer of the Valley of New Orleans and the Scottish Rite, and he was a good guy. Earl Ferguson was another one who was he ended up being my main instructor and taught me a lot of the work going up for my certificate of proficiency. He was chairman of the Permanent Committee of Work for the Grand Lodge of Louisiana, and I miss all those guys tremendously. I wish they were still around. But
Mm-hmm.
I I went through, and when I became worshipful master, for a good while I regretted it because I was young, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember distinctly when I sat up there, I felt like everybody was looking at me, just waiting for me to make a mistake or do
Mm-hmm.
something wrong, and they would boom. And I remember this when I joined. Masonry in the United States had its glory days in the 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it took off. After World War II, it just exploded in membership. But by the time I joined, that downward slump had already started,
Mm-hmm.
and more and more lodges were starting to have trouble. So when I went through, that lodge was not of the same strength that it was even just 5, 10 years before I joined. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I was going through, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was going on, but I remember hearing from the sidelines people yelling and correcting somebody. I didn't know what was what, but there was a lot of yelling going. Hey, no, 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 that's not right. This, and it was distracting to me. And I knew the guy who was conducting me around was stumbling over every couple of words, and then somebody would yell, and then I'd be passing around, and I heard somebody talking about their cousin who was sick, and another guy was talking about building a new garage. And I said, what does all this have to do with masonry? So when I got to the East, I said, okay, I remember all that. That's not right. So what I wanted to do was try to shut that down. And I tried to, we had several certificate, they call them certificate men. They knew the ritual,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted them to be in positions in the lodge where they would be the
Do.
ones
Mm-hmm.
correcting, and people wouldn't be just yelling out things from all over the place. So that was one of the first things that I tried to do in the
Mhm.
lodge. And I got a lot of, hey kid, who are you to tell us what to do? And it was a mixed blessing. But I took that experience and I built on it. I kept pushing and pushing things. And well, 1980 came, it was 10 years later. I mean, 1990.
1990. Mhm.
And well, they put me back in these. Well, I had 10 more years of age and experience to go by. So it was a little smoother time with that.
Okay.
But yeah, it was some interesting times during those years.
Hmm. Do you remember approximately how many brothers were in your lodge in 1980 when you were worshipful master? Oh, how about in 1975 when you were raised? Do you know roughly,
Do
was it
do
less
you
than
mean
50?
do you mean members or attending the lodge? Because not all who
Yeah, of
attended.
course.
Right,
Well, we
members, like
say
total roll. Like what was the roll? And if you know, if you remember who all attended, but if you know the roll number, that'd be great too.
It was about 75,
okay.
or give or take a few.
Hmm.
Around 75, we would have about 20 attending the lodge. Um, but that was a good time. 1990, it was a lot less.
Wow.
1990, if we had enough to open, that was considered lucky then, and that's why several years later the lodge went dark, and there was a
Hmm.
lot of lodges that were just um, structured wrong,
Mm,
and they began, and so we would see a lot of lodges who just could not meet, and they didn't have, they'd end up, no quorum tonight, no quorum this meeting, no quorum that meeting, and so it was a difficult time from about 85 to around 2000 or so, or a little after. That was the really hard time. Nobody knew what was going on. They didn't understand why everybody was quitting, what was happening. So it was a tough time. But in 80 or 75, there was about 75 members, and we'd get maybe 20 in the lodge. There was enough that they had offices, and there was enough that they still had standards for anyone who wanted to be an officer.
hmm.
And I got my certificate of proficiency, so they shot me through that. But they, after a while, pretty much if you showed up, then you became an officer.
Okay. And so when you were going through the chairs the first time, it seemed like you were on that fast track for a
Hmm.
variety of reasons. Um, do you recall some of the things that you may have been thinking about? I know you were very young at that time. Things to prepare you for that seat, or you were just kind of just going with the flow. I know in your 20s you can kind of just go with the flow and really not be too intentional about your thought process. But curious about your thought process when you were going through the chairs the first time in terms of preparing yourself for that worshipful master seat.
Well, when I was elected junior warden, I mentioned Fred Siegel and Earl Ferguson. Both of them got me on the side, and they said, "Okay, you're going through. You got to make plans. You got to set up, look at a calendar and see what dates the lodge is meeting, and plan something for those meetings. Don't just ride through it. Have
Hmm.
something in mind. So plan something, and select watch who's around. They said always somebody's could join that may come in, but look at who's in the lodge, and if you want them as appointed officers, try to get thing as much as you can ahead of time. So by the time you're senior warden, you really should start planning what you're going to do and finalize everything. And then when you master, you'll not gonna be just kind of flowing with it.
Hmm.
So yeah, I was lucky in that I had some help and some good brothers who were really guiding me in a way that was right, I think.
That's interesting.
Your your lodge, or I don't know if it's common in your jurisdiction. You didn't have like a formal trestle board for the year.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
cool, cool.
Of course, there was no email back then,
Yeah.
and we'd go to the print shop and print up a newsletter, and
Hmm.
that was an important thing.
Hmm.
And the secretary did that,
Okay.
and he had a couple of guys that would help him feed and things. But it was a newsletter that always came out, and it was regular, and
Hmm.
that was a good thing,
Yeah.
uh, because it showed up in the mailbox, every month really. So
Yeah,
Hmm.
keep brothers informed. One thing I do want to say, I guess I give a shout out to your Grand Lodge. You said in 1975 they had certificates for proficiency for officers. I know there's lodges and Grand Lodges since I've been in Masonry, been doing that and adding on and adding on. And some people still ain't get to that point and still looking to get to that. And y'all had that 50 years ago. So
that
that's
was
That's the Master
in
Mason one, right?
well,
mm,
the thing was
mm,
in the 50s and 60s.
yeah.
That was the explosion of membership. And
Hmm.
they had, as far as stewards, they'd
Hmm.
have about 6 or 7 junior stewards.
Yeah.
And if you missed a meeting, well, you're out, next guy
Yeah.
in. They had
Hmm.
enough people that they could,
Do
uh,
things like that.
yeah,
Mhm.
they could say, okay, I want you. No, you. And it was all about the work at that
Yeah.
time.
Hmm.
If you knew the work, you got in. If you didn't know, sorry, you
Yeah.
should have learned the work. If you can't learn, there was a guy told me some years back. I knew the lodge, and I knew that the guy was coming in as master. And let me say, he was as nice a guy as you want to meet, but he did not know the ritual at all. He
Hmm.
was always late.
Mm.
He dressed sloppy coming into lodge. Uh, Everything was a problem, and he just didn't know. And his year as master was terrible.
Hmm.
And after it was over, I was talking to one of the other guys in the lodge, and I said, really, that was a rough thing to do to him as well as the lodge. I said, because you put him under a lot. He said, oh, no, 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 no. He says, everybody deserves to be master of the lodge. Well, I thought
Mm.
about that, and I said, no, that's not really,
Hmm.
that's not in the
Yeah.
best interest of the lodge. You
Exactly.
know. So,
Hmm.
but there's been a change in
Hmm.
attitudes, and I think we are coming out of a really rough period of time, and
Hmm.
I think things could be improving. I hope, and
Yeah.
and I've seen some lodges that are really having one problem after another, and other lodges that are slowly starting to dig themselves out and
Hmm.
and and improving and uh, being so. Not everybody, whoever is the best suited for the job, is it. It's not just everybody who, if you show up, you get something. That's not the way it works, in my
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
opinion.
Hmm. Hmm.
definitely. I mean, we've seen how that goes wrong a lot of times. I think in our jurisdiction, with that the progressive line concept is one for a conversation where just because you are a warm body in that warden seat, naturally you move to the next seat unless something catastrophic happens. And we have different debates about whether that progressive line is helpful or not. So no, thank you for bringing that up. I just want to make sure I'm clear. The brothers that were supporting you when you were a junior warden, were those past masters or were they just senior brothers who were just kind of helping you out?
Past masters.
Okay. I think that's the first time I think I've heard. I mean, we almost got 50 episodes in. I don't think I've heard of another brother mention that they were mentored by someone as the junior warden by past masters that kind of led them through this. I don't think I remember. I'm sure it's happened, but I don't
Hmm.
think I've
Yeah. Of
heard
course.
somebody say
Hmm.
it.
Well,
So
one
that's
of
some.
them was the treasurer of the lodge, and another was not actually a past master of that lodge. He was a member of another lodge.
Mm,
Okay.
But
Hmm.
both of them, and that was, now this was at the beginning of 1980s. So this was a long time ago,
Hmm.
and that was pretty much the standard at that time. But that standard kind of went by the wayside pretty quickly after that.
yeah.
But yeah, when you were like the junior warden, they'd pull you aside and they'd say, "Okay, listen, this is what you got to do. This is what you got to do, and you got to set things up. You got." And so it guided me. I had the ritual, so I was okay on that. But this other information was necessary to keep my organizational aspect
Mm,
of the office together, if that
yeah.
makes any sense. It's just it was a practice that they did. And no, I don't see it practiced today very much at all. When somebody comes, a junior warden, congratulations, here's your lines, take care. And
Mm.
Mm,
that's unfortunate, in my
mm.
opinion.
No, it definitely is. I mean, the one thing that you was saying we need to, like you was talking about with the worship master that wasn't set up right, because you need good examples to learn from so brothers can see. So that wasn't set a good example. That's definitely the first thing that what I think that we're short of in general in the craft on a whole. We don't have enough good examples for brothers to look to, especially in the lodges that struggling, because that's why they're struggling.
Mm.
Because you don't have the brothers in there that's actually have maybe the wisdom to help guide them through the rough patches to get to where they need to be. Um, but we do have one of our staple questions on here, past
Hey
Master
Mark,
Paul.
before we go
Okay.
to that
Yep, no
question, I just want
problem.
to dig a little bit deeper, just real quick here. You talked about when you were a worship master in 1980, you focused in on some of the ritual workers. I think of what I heard you say because when you came in, you didn't have a really good experience. At least that's what I took from it. I'm curious about how did that go? I know you said they were telling you like, "Hey kid, what are you telling us what to do?" Even though they elected you to be worshipful master, so that's interesting. First off,
Mhm.
so I was curious about how did that year go, and then in 1990, with 10 years of experience under your belt, what did you focus on in 1990?
Well, in 1980, I was trying to talk about what I mentioned about how um, the candidate is the focus. When you're having a degree, the candidate is the main focus, and the candidate has absolutely no idea if you leave out of line or if you say something a little wrong or something. He has no idea what, and it doesn't matter really. What matters is a total package. That the ceremony. There's a there's an old thought that in order for initiation to be valid, you have to have three elements. One is you have to have a desire to be initiated, and that's when you petition. That's why you ask to join. And then there's a desire to initiate, which is the lodge accepting the petition. And the third element is the proper setting. And when you have a lot of laughing and joking around and all that, that's not the proper setting. And you're depriving the candidate of
Mm,
something that could be done. And I realized that when I was going through, and I says, I want to try to correct that. Well, some of them were mad at, not all of them. I mean, there was some guys that said, you know, you're right. So it was a mixed bag. But 1990 came around. The lodge had already started having problems, and I think they were looking for somebody to try and fix things immediately. And the sad part is that sometimes, um, no matter what you do, it just doesn't work. And the lodge went dark after that. 3 or 4 years later, it just couldn't keep up, and there weren't enough members, and they had allowed too many to come in and take office who really shouldn't have taken office, and they sent the lodge off in the wrong way. And
mm,
you know, so I tried to in 90. I tried to keep the focus correct and try to tread water as best as I could, trying to guide them in the right direction. I knew if I had tried to bring anything big in or any big plans or anything, it wouldn't work. So at some point, you just try to hold on as best you can.
just stabilize, try to keep it from
Stabilize,
yeah,
yeah. You get a little turn, a little small turn.
right.
Get them good aim towards the right direction. Yeah. Yeah, you said I think it's important that you said the brothers wasn't the officers wasn't fit for those things, and they kind of probably threw off the lodge culture, completely changed it into something else. And that's a hard thing to change back. Once
Mhm.
you start making those years and years and years of grinding and it's on the decline, you have to make a real conscious decision as a lodge that you want to decide to change and become all that. But if you don't have the brothers that want to give that energy, it's not gonna happen.
Mhm.
That's what it is. So they said one of our staple questions on the show is what is effective leadership? So in your opinion, what is effective leadership?
Effective leadership is not just the ritual.
Mm,
That's an element. It's kind of like dressing up when you go to lodge. You want to show respect for the lodge, and part of that is the ritual. That's the first element, but that's not all of it. What you want to do is have an air of confidence, and I know firsthand when I first went east, that's a nervous station. Everybody's looking at you, and you're wondering, am I doing this right, or have I done something wrong? Or there's a nervous element, but you have to go through it and planning. What these guys had told me is you have a plan, you have a schedule, and if you follow the plan and you're aware that always something can pop up out the blue. You can all of a sudden something happen that you didn't expect, or all of a sudden you get a petition or something.
mm,
Uh, but you have to have the regulated system for having a meeting that's not just chaos.
mm,
And what you want to do is try, my opinion is that the goal of Freemasonry is a personal one. It's to give you the tools that you can make yourself a better human being. And it's not trying to get titles or degrees or honors or all this stuff. It's you trying to improve yourself, make yourself a little better. And I think that that has to be a main focus for anybody who's in leadership. Um, Too many times I've seen leaders who do not want to bring somebody else in underneath them who might outshine them, because then all of a sudden they're not the spotlight anymore. And I think
Mm.
you should always look for somebody who's better than you underneath, so that the future of the organization is going to continue and it's going to survive and grow. Um, I believe that effective leadership is when you don't just take a ride, but you try to actually steer the ship and try to figure out, what do we want to do? Where are we going? What plans? If you're talking about, well, we have to get a new building. Well, then plan that. Get the group. Well, air conditioning went out. We got to get a new air conditioning unit. Plan who are the best people to get that. And I think effective leadership is knowing who you have in your lodge to do what jobs, and making sure that the right person gets the right task. And that's a start for it. And it's a hard thing, I think, to pin down completely, because there's so many elements. And somebody who's good in business doesn't necessarily mean that they could be a good worshipful master. It's this lodge is not a business like a shop or something. So there's a lot of elements that go into it, and it would probably take a couple of these sessions just to go over that one question completely.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned a couple of things that we've heard consistently.
mm.
Knowing your brothers is something we hear
Knowing your
every
members.
time. Know your brothers. Know your brothers.
Exactly.
Know your brothers. Know your brothers. So if you come
Yeah.
in this thing and not trying to know another human, like if you don't like people, this ain't the place to
This ain't the
be.
place to
So,
be. You ain't, yeah, it's about relationships. That's how
especially if
you
you want to be
gonna
a
learn.
leader.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Hmm.
Um, and then having a plan. We heard that on our last episode, and we've heard that before as well. And so being intentional, having vision, having a plan, scheduling your time. You talked about the before about setting the proper setting. So making sure there's proper set. So that goes into almost that using those tools and trying to create the environment. I know environment came up as well in another episode. Create the environment where men can be better because of the leadership, the planning that you put into it. I'm curious about the time you put into learning your brothers, and if there's anybody listening right now who's new to the craft, who has aspirations of being a leader, knowing that that is a critical element of leadership, is knowing the men who are potentially going to be supporting your plans or executing your plans. How much time or what sort of strategies did you use to get to learn brothers? Was it just time and patience, or did you have intentional plans on how to get to know brothers?
Actually, rehearsal night was an ideal time for getting to know them, because the rehearsals would usually go over pretty quick. And what we do is just sit around and talk and visit and get to know them. Well, what do you do? I mean, it's like um, this is now your family. And you got a cousin that you haven't seen for a while. Hey, how's it going? What's new in your life? What are you doing? What happened with this? That was you had a problem with your car a while back. What happened with? You talk to them. You get to understand what they're doing, and you learn. You talking with somebody. He says, "Ah, well, yeah, well, I'm building a garage or something." Well, he said, "Well, you got some carpentry skills." Yeah, I do. Now, next time you know that there's something carpentry that needs to be done in the
Mm-hmm.
lodge, you know who to call. And it's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing, plumbing, or
Mm-hmm.
this guy's an attorney. Uh, you get to know who does what, and are they willing to share what they're doing, their skills with you, with the lodge, and then you get to do it. But I found that rehearsal nights are ideal nights for that. Or you can most lodges today, they'll have a meal either before or after the meeting. And a lot of times that's a good place to get to know who the lodge members are. And a lot of times what we will do, and it's not just most of the lodges that I've seen around that area, somebody who wants to petition, they'll invite them to several dinners ahead of time, and
Mm-hmm.
they'll get to know the people, and everybody get to know them, and it's a good time to learn about somebody. So there's a number of ways. It's not really hard if you want to, and
Mm-hmm.
if you don't want to get to know somebody, you can go sit on the side and just not do anything, and get your free meal, and just move on. you know,
Well,
Not always free meal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's a big piece. I do want to just put a pin on this one. The proper setting again. The leader of the lodge or the leaders of the lodge. I know in our jurisdiction, a lot of times the junior ward is responsible for the food, and it might be the same in the other places in other jurisdictions. Um, but creating that setting is a decision that lodges have to make. So you said two things. One, you said rehearsal night. You got to make sure you got a rehearsal night, lodge. It's like you got to make sure you're doing degree practice. You're not just brothers read your book at home. We'll see you degree night. Like having an
Mm.
intentional degree night or rehearsal night is a decision that the lodges have to make, and it's probably dictated by the leaders of the lodge. And then two, making sure you have collation. We talked about that many times about having food either before or after the lodge. I think multiple guests on the show have talked about the importance of that meal having something. I think Right Word for Wardali was saying, hey, I don't care if it's just spaghetti and meatballs or whatever it is, like have something so brothers can break bread at the meeting. So, but I do know there's lodges that decide to bypass having collation. They just go home. They're like, I'm ready. I'm having the meeting, bag it up, go home. So they're not really setting that environment so brothers can get to know each other, other than if they just take their own personal ambition and go and try to meet a brother outside of the lodge. And so those two things are a pretty good setting to in order to foster that relationship building.
You see,
Definitely.
I gotta explain one thing though. Uh, I'm from New Orleans, and food is a really big deal in New Orleans. And so, with most lodges, they have a meal beforehand, and then
Mhm.
afterwards, they all sit around, drink coffee, and visit a little while longer. So it's very rare that you go in and they just go in and have the meeting and then leave. There's
Mm,
Mhm.
usually something, some kind of meal beforehand.
yeah.
And there's, then they'll have the big pots of coffee come out, and everybody be having coffee after the lodge meeting and talking and visiting and things like that. So it's I guess it's the culture of the area, whatever is the culture going on in that area, particular area. That's what usually goes on.
Um, that's definitely true. I would say for the most part, as I've seen it so far, most of the time where people don't have correlation, it's more of we don't got the money no more. And the brothers can't afford to do it themselves. That's
Yeah.
technically most of the time I see that's what happens. Because most
Well, they
large
have coffee. They can they can
yeah,
they
they could,
can
yeah, like I said, coffee and donuts, a little something that anything
yeah.
that's at the, whatever it is, it don't have to be fancy. Sometimes we get to used to comparing everybody. Well, Sons of Kings had steak and salmon, so we got to have that. Nah, if you could pull up a sandwich, I done really visit lodges all over the places. The sandwiches, the spaghetti, whatever they have. So you just take what it is. I do have a question, particularly about when, like when you first served as worship master and just coming into the Freemasonry at such a young age. What was going on with you? I don't know if you were married at the time, children,
No,
or
I was not when I
so
joined.
Freemason was mainly your thing, or what else were you getting into outside of me? I know, like now, there's more things to get into. I would get with social media and stuff like that, of course. But did you have other type of hobbies that you was getting into at that time?
I was a musician.
Okay,
I played in bands, so I
okay.
used to, and then disco came and that knocked me out. You know? But yeah, I used I enjoyed philosophy before I joined Masonry.
Hmm.
I studied philosophy and a lot of the esoteric side,
Hmm.
and I was fascinated, and I could see elements, especially in the Scottish Rite craft
Hmm.
degrees. I would see elements. I said, oh, I recognize that's alchemical. This is I would recognize things, and it was an interesting time. I was fortunate. Um, we had, when right after we finished the Master Mason degree, I'm sorry, when I finished my EA degree, they, I was assigned a traveling visitation committee. You couldn't visit a lodge unless you were a master mason by
Hmm.
yourself. And
Hmm.
so
Yep.
several master masons would go with it. And it turned out to be my former investigation committee. But
Hmm.
what we did was they'd call me up on like a Sunday evening and they'd say, okay, such and such lodge has a EA degree on Wednesday. Can you make it? And I'd say, sure. And
Hmm.
I'd go and watching a degree as an EA, uh, seeing it was so much more helpful. And then
Hmm.
I remember I had gone to 2 degrees, and then somebody called me. One of the guys called. He said, "We got a special thing for you tonight." I said, "What's that?" They said, "It's a Scottish Rite EA degree." I said, "What's that?" They said,
Yeah.
"You find out." And so I said, I went to it. I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, well,
Mm.
"I like this,"
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and uh, I said, this is, I didn't know it. And I said, well, why do you have Scottish Rite and why do you have the York Rite? He said, because we do.
Mm.
They didn't, but it opened up a whole new, but even in, that's a unique area. Most areas of the United States, they don't have
Yeah.
that. But still, going a committee to go around with a brand new EA to show them
Mm.
what the degrees look like. If it kind of fell by the wayside because if a lodge had some lodges, if they have 1 degree a year, they consider that successful.
Yeah.
So it's a hard time now for a lot of that. But the more education you can get to EAs, fellow crafts, and new master masons, the better they're going to be in the long run. The better officer they could be, and it's going to help the lodge in the long run. So.
Um, Past Master Paul, can you do a brief explanation of the difference between the York Rite craft and the Scottish Rite craft for those that may not have listened to the show before? I know I brought it up before, but you more of an expert than me, so.
Uh, a Masonic, one of the big problems that I've seen in if you a lot of Masonic artwork, you'll see where it'll have a Masonic pyramid where it shows the steps of Freemasonry. And
Mm.
you got on one side, you got a whole bunch of steps, and on the other side, they got a whole bunch of more steps. One side's the York Rite, and the other
Mm.
side's the Scottish Rite. And it shows you all the different degrees for each one going up the side. And at the base, they have it's called the Craft Lodge,
Hmm.
and they give a representation that the York Rite and the Scottish Rite begin at the 4th degree,
Hmm.
and at the Craft Lodge is a separate entity.
Hmm.
And United States is unique with that because most other places in the world, they realize that when you say Masonic Rite, that means a complete system beginning in the end of the apprentice degree and concluding in whatever degree is the final degree. And well, I just pulled my earpiece out.
Yeah.
uh, the the thing that was most helpful for me going through was to see immediately that there's this type of ritual. And when I first went through, I didn't know what it meant. I didn't, York Rite, Scottish Rite, it could have been apples and oranges. I didn't know what it meant,
Mm-hmm.
but I knew that there was a difference. And I believe it's important because I know when we went through the consistory, um, there was always a group. Now, I joined the Scottish Rite Lodge right after that, and there was a lot with that. At that time, there was not many York Rite Masons and Scottish Rite Masons that you know. But
Mm-hmm.
what they in the consistory, when they got their 32nd degree, there was a thing. They said, "What is the difference between a 16th district and that's the Scottish Rite district under the
District.
Grand
Mm-hmm.
Lodge?" They said, "What's the difference between a 16th district 32nd and the Sovereign Grand Commander?" I said, "What?" I said, "Well, the 16th district 32nd has 32 Scottish Rite degrees. The Sovereign Grand Commander's only got 30 because
Yeah.
the Craft Lodge."
Yeah,
And
York
so,
right.
but it's a complete system, and we have two systems, complete systems, unfortunately, because of a lot of unfortunate battles early on in Masonry, um, and a decision that they wanted um, one Grand Lodge, one ritual, one language, all of this stuff, all of the nonsense that they did originally when they set up Masonry. The Scottish Rite lodges are non-existent, and I've been talking about this for a long, long time. But there's still places that I go and I talk about a Scottish Rite craft, and they say, "What are you talking about? There's no such thing." I said,
Mm-hmm.
"Yeah, there is." And it's you go outside of the U.S., in Europe, Central America, South America, they're all over the place.
Yep.
And it's just here that we don't realize it, and I think it's a loss for us. But check out New Orleans Scottish Rite College YouTube
Yep.
channel. There's a lot of videos on there that explain this.
Yep.
Time really, I couldn't do it justice to
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
explain
exactly.
everything.
No,
And
it was a
and I
good
tell you
touch.
what,
Hmm.
there's new discoveries being found right now. Unfortunately, there was a lot of trouble in the Grand Lodge of Louisiana that ended in 1850, and there was a lot of stuff that was destroyed,
Mm,
records,
mm,
and we're finding new things out, and we're finding things, and it's changing the whole story of what we thought we knew earlier.
mm,
And I mean, within the last month,
mm,
I've learned some things from some Masons in California who are participating in a lodge that was brought from New Orleans. And it's a whole story. I'll be talking about this
yeah,
soon, and you watch
okay.
for it. But
Mm.
there's no good guy, bad guy. It's just a difference, and one is not better than the other. They both teach the same thing. It's just like if you go into an ice cream shop, one guy like strawberry ice cream, another guy like Rocky Road or something. It's just a different flavor of ice cream. It's a different way of telling the same story.
Yep, yep. I definitely will suggest any brothers who get a chance to visit a Scottish Rite Lodge, if you have amity with Louisiana, like in Grand Lodge, most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Maryland guys, run down to Louisiana, go visit one of them 16 district lodges so you get a chance to see that.
Oh wait, now
Yeah,
don't
now
don't
we no, what, don't what?
don't you guys in New
Okay.
York City,
Okay.
isn't there five Scottish Rite
Yeah,
lodges
I was
under the
about to say,
Grand
yeah, I
Line?
was about to mention it.
Oh,
I was
okay,
about to, I
okay.
was gonna mention that too. Yeah, exactly. Because I brought it up before, especially here in New York, Garibaldi has a great ceremonial we do. I think it's every few years. I think California has one, but whenever you get a chance to see a Scottish Rite Lodge, definitely go see it because it's something different and unique, and you won't regret the experience. I will tell you that.
Yeah, we had a
Right.
member from Garibaldi was
Mhm.
joined Germania,
Okay.
and I can't think of his name. He was oh, this was about 1985 or so, like that. And at that time, he was about 85, so he's long gone
Oh,
his
yeah, yeah.
reward. But he was made a Mason in New York City,
Hmm.
and it's interesting history.
Definitely, definitely.
So past Master Paul, you decided to do something else in your Masonic journey and go back to the East, what, 28 years later? after, after your second stint. Almost 28 years. What is it? 28 years. So we got what 2000,
I
2010. Yeah.
was, yeah.
28 years later. What was that about?
Well, uh, Louisiana, the Grand Lodge of Louisiana has a lot of lodges that were, uh, well, we had five different languages, and Chevantes was the last holdout for a non-English language. It was Spanish speaking, and this was around 2000, somewhere around like that. They put out a call. They said we need plural members because Chevantes is getting ready to die, and if it doesn't they would switch to English, and they don't have enough members. And so I knew the historic value of the lodge, so I took out a plural membership in Chevantes, and I stayed around for a while, and we there was almost the lodge was existing, but it was kind of like on life support.
Hmm.
And so there was a movement, uh, let's bring Spanish back to the lodge. Can we bring this lodge back? And there, there was a lot of recruiting of other Masons in the area who were Spanish speaking. I was not one of them, but they figured that I'd been around for a long time. Could I, would I accept the East in
Hmm.
that and kind of whip
Jumpstart.
things up
Hmm.
to kickstart, a Spanish speaking. So I did, and it is now again Spanish speaking, and it's doing wonderful, and
Nice.
so that is a good thing. But the Germania was German speaking.
There you
Um,
go.
Etoile Polaire, which is Polar Star,
Star,
was
Polar
French
Star.
speaking.
Hmm.
Perfect Union was Spanish, French speaking. So there
Hmm.
was a lot of that we had some Italian speaking lodges too,
There you go.
and
Hmm.
so there was a lot of culture that was involved in all of these lodges. And there were, I know with Etoile Polaire, there was Polar Star, there
Hmm.
was always there was one guy, the last guy, he would say the prayer in French,
Mm.
and he passed away. And it was a long time before anybody would come in and research. And
Do
I'd like to see some of that back again. And if everyone in the lodge is English speaking, that's fine. But if you have a lodge and there's a need, why not? What difference does it make if it's French speaking, Spanish speaking, or whatever language? If the
hmm.
lodge is filling the needs of the members, seems
Yeah.
like well, it's
Hmm.
a good thing.
How did you lead a lodge that was Spanish speaking and not be Spanish speaking?
No, it switched to English when I joined it. And so they spent about 10, 15 years as an English speaking lodge
Okay.
before. And the reason they switched to English was because all of the Spanish speaking members, there was like one left.
Right.
And
Okay. Got it.
it was going to die. And so it was English speaking. And it remained English speaking until the year after I left. And
Okay.
it switched to Spanish. And
Okay.
They say we ain't letting him back in. Let's speak in language
uh,
he don't understand.
they'll be talking about me, and I never know what they're
Yeah,
saying.
the master sucks.
Oh my God. So what did you focus on then in 2018 as master?
Yeah.
I tried to show the importance of the lodge, the historical importance of the lodge,
Okay.
and tried to show that, you know, uh, history is important. And unfortunately, sometimes um, there's a reason for people to not want to accept the history and want to change it to something that they think is a better history. and
Mm.
you know, I take a dim view of that, and I just try to show that this lodge is of value, and there was a reason. There was a lot of um, in the early 1800s. Uh, Chevantes Lodge was a, Masons would come in from Cuba or from South Central America into New Orleans, and at that time it was Los Amigos del Orden was the name of the lodge. But they would come in and they'd visit with the Masons, and they had several hospitals in town.
Mm.
They'd come in for medical treatments. And this was all the way up until the 1950s and 1960s.
Oh wow.
This would take
Mm.
place. And so there was a lot of community in the Spanish speaking community. There was a lot of help that was given by this lodge to that community. And I thought that was a value. And I wanted to just do what I could, even if it's just putting my name as master and trying to stir up some interest in this. Um, I felt it was of value.
So it was actually just trying to inspire the brothers to get back to and let them understand the importance actually of the lodge.
Right.
Yeah, in layman's terms, as we say now, he was trying to put a battery in their back to get this thing going.
Yeah,
But
need the
it
battery.
worked, it seemed, so they, you gave them a little kickstart, put the jumper cables on them and
Yeah,
they back to going again. So that's fantastic. That's one of the things that I don't know, a lot of brothers probably don't understand and realize how much Freemasonry has changed through the years. And like in our jurisdiction, we did have Spanish speaking lodges, well, Prince Hall 38, that's where what you calling was that? What's his name?
Schaumburg.
Schaumburg. Yeah, Schaumburg was a member. That was Spanish speaking at the time. It was Cuba de Sol or something like that. That was the name of it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I know we had a Jewish lodge at one point in our jurisdiction. There was a vast majority, a range of Masons and things like that, so it was more expanded, I would think, than it is now. And I don't know if brothers understand that history, and hopefully we can get back to that one day, that we all don't have to be the same.
Mm.
I
Well,
appreciate the differences.
what do you could do? You go to the ice cream store that only
Mhm.
has one flavor, or you go
Yeah,
to the ice cream store that's got whole, you know?
exactly. I don't want to go to all vanilla ice cream store.
Yeah, yeah.
I definitely don't.
Well, if you never knew that chocolate existed and only
Yeah,
vanilla existed, it's almost like the allegory of the cave type of thing
yeah,
right
yeah.
now. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I
so
talk about the allegory of the cave in
Hmm.
one of the videos on my YouTube channel, so you'll
mhm.
see that.
There we go. Another plug, another plug. I love it. I love it. Hey, Past Master Paul, do you recall, because you did say that Chevantes is thriving now, they're back to being Spanish speaking, and that's not too long ago. It's what, the last 6 years or so. Do you know what strategies they put in place to recruit, or not recruit, but to gain membership? Um, since you said they were kind of they weren't Spanish speaking, they were English speaking for a couple of years, almost a half a decade, and then they became Spanish speaking again. So they must have brought some more members in.
They brought members in. There was a lot of Masons who spoke Spanish, uh, but they weren't members of Chevantes. They joined some other, they didn't know, and so they
Hmm.
joined other lodges. So the first step was to get them as plural members,
Okay.
and
Okay.
and then there is still a strong Spanish speaking community in New Orleans, and it was word of mouth. It
Hmm.
was it goes down to what do you want to do? You can just show up at meeting and do the ritual, visit with your friends and go home, or you can do the meeting and take it with you outside and try to explore things. So they saw it around, and they would talk about masonry in places that they knew there could be some interest, and it's just done well. They're putting on degrees, and the only problem that happens is when they get somebody who only speaks Spanish, and they have
Yeah.
some, and
Hmm.
but they have a lot of translators. So,
Hmm.
and then you get somebody like me going in. So they say, well, he's a past master, well, and they start speaking Spanish to me, and I said, well, I don't. I'm sorry.
I know
Okay.
that was actually one of the best uses of plural membership I have ever heard of. with a grant or whatever, just put out, like, "Ah, we need some extra help over this lodge." I know we do that even in our jurisdiction. A lodge may be struggling and they ask brothers to come out and help them open and things like that. But we can't actually help that lodge fully because we're not members of that lodge. We have no voting members, no voting power. We can't make no decisions. All we could do is stand in while you get your self together. In that case, when it comes to plural membership, you can actually have brothers come in, be members, and help galvanize the membership and get it going, give it the kickstart. Then
Yeah,
we
no,
can
it
move on
was
to that.
Louisiana has allows plural membership,
Mhm.
and so we just there was a they put out a call, and a lot of the Masons just said okay, and I was one of them. I just wanted to see if I could help. I'd hate to see that lodge just die
Yeah.
for a reason when it could possibly be saved.
Hmm.
So, just so and there's only a few Prince Hall jurisdictions that do have plural membership. So, if anybody's working on that, you could use this show as an example of something to help you out to get that across in your Grand Law session.
Yeah, put it in the chat if you got if you know the names of the jurisdictions that allow for a
Yeah,
plural
plural
membership
membership in
in
Prince
Prince
Hall.
Hall. Prince
Yeah,
Hall.
that's a good question.
I'll
Yeah,
just
put
say
that in the
this:
chat.
uh, anytime you put a resolution into Grand Lodge, any Grand Lodge,
Mhm.
um, what my experience is, you can't be insulting to anybody in the Grand Lodge because that'll get it shot down immediately.
Mhm.
But you got to be persistent because you could come
Mhm.
up with a really good idea, and for whatever reason, maybe they got other things in their mind and they don't vote for it, and you say, "Oh well, I tried." No, you
Mhm.
come back the following year, and you as often as you can, respectfully be, you know, and say, "Hey, I got an idea I think can help. I'm not trying to cause problems for you. I'm trying to help."
Mhm.
And a lot of times it'll get through
Yeah.
eventually.
Can you speak a little bit to so you're currently a member of five lodges. You talked a little bit about why you joined Chevantes. Well, you talked about why you joined Chevantes. You're also a member of Perfect Union number one, Polar Star number one, Germania number 46, and then you also have a membership in DC with Hiram Tacoma number 10. Um, is it just kind of like, hey, I'm collecting memberships? Are you paying dues for all these members? Like, do you got to go to all the
Definitely got to pay
cookouts and
dues.
I was until
the dinner
last
dances
year.
and all these things? Like, how does that work?
I was paying dues until I'm a 50-year member now, so I don't pay dues. But
Okay.
Okay.
that's the thing. I joined. I was a member of Friends of Harmony number 58,
Mhm.
and that went dark, and so I transferred over to Germania 46, Scottish Rite Lodge.
Mhm.
So that was my first Scottish Rite Lodge. And while I was at Germania, uh, Chevantes put out the call. And so I joined Chevantes. Then I joined Etoile Polaire, a perfect Polar
Cool
Star,
star.
uh, because I appreciated the history of it. And I was talking with several people, and we're doing some work, and they said that they had um, records of an ancestor of mine from way back
Mm.
that I didn't know was actually a member. And so I said, well, I want to join. And then Perfect Union, because my sons were joining, and it was a roundabout way things were happening, and they ended up they petitioned at Perfect Union, so I joined Perfect Union to be with them. Hiram Tacoma, that was uh, many years ago, and I don't know if you guys remember him or heard of him, Alan Roberts.
Yep.
He
Leadership book, that, yeah, black and yellow book. I know exactly what you talking about. Yeah, yeah.
he
Remember
was
that.
he helped me out, and I was it was a difficult time around the late 80s, early 90s, and he got me in Hiram Tacoma 10, and he talked with them, and I came up to DC, and I joined Hiram Tacoma,
Mm.
and I was honored. They gave me a life membership, and
Okay.
there was a lot of work that was being done around that time, and so there was that was. basically, and I've been made honorary member at different places at different times, and I've always appreciated it, and I respect it. Uh, but that was my path, basically.
Okay. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I wasn't intending on joining a bunch of lodges. It just kind of happened.
Circumstances, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
for sure.
exactly. Well, you did mention about your sons joining, but it sounded like they didn't really join through you.
Uh, yes and no. I
Okay.
wanted them to join um, Friends of Harmony 58. That was impossible.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I brought their petitions, and
Okay.
I I'm trying to remember now. It's a while back. I don't remember. Well, yeah, with my younger son, I
Hmm.
was already a member of Perfect Union. My older son was a member of Perfect Union. And
Hmm.
I think I joined right before they joined because all I had to do was uh, put it in a plural membership
So
request.
did you gave them the petition, or they got it from somebody
I
else
gave
though?
them the petitions.
So you
You
gave
can
them
get in
the okay,
Louisiana,
yeah,
you can
I
sign a
said. Hmm.
petition. You can be a top line signer
Hmm.
and pass it to another lodge. You can't do it for
Oh,
another state
okay,
Mm,
outside the jurisdiction,
interesting.
but
Hmm.
in the state, yes, you could.
Yeah, Louisiana got so many different rules in a lot of Grand Lodges, so that's interesting to know. Good to know.
Well, the Grand Lodge is not the only one's got strange laws. The state's got strange laws. We're still under they're under the Napoleonic Code. So there's
Okay,
a
okay.
yeah, it's so amazing because you'll travel the world, you'll travel the United States, and you'll see brothers with the square and compass on. They come from so many different jurisdictions with so much background, and you come with your own lens on it. Like you come with a New York state of mind, and you go
Hmm.
down south, and you go across the West Coast and all these other places, and they just have just a different way of living in masonry. It's just it's beautiful. But you have to have an open mind. You can't think your
Definitely.
way is the way. And so I
Hmm.
appreciate learning about these differences and the diversity that masonry offers up. I just got to travel more and get out to some of these lodges like you have, Mark, just going to different states and just experiencing it and being uncomfortable because I'm so used to New York masonry. I got to
Yeah.
get out and try something else.
Yeah, you got to
Yeah.
get out, man. I mean, you probably closer to what Ohio or something like that, right? Up there. What you close
Yeah,
to? Yeah,
yeah,
you
Ohio, Pennsylvania. I've been to
yeah,
Pennsylvania
Pennsylvania.
for a
Yeah,
couple of
yeah,
things, but
something
yeah, I
like that.
gotta.
Yeah, you do. Whatever's close to you, that's the best thing to do,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Well, I'll be
Mhm.
giving a talk for Ohio in November.
Mhm.
I think it's going to be online, the Research Lodge, the Grand Lodge
Mm,
Research Lodge. So
Mhm.
yeah.
I'll
So can you
Cool.
talk a little bit, Past Master Paul, about how you show up as a past master today? I mean, you aren't too far removed from being a past master again. But
Look, are you the guy now that's grabbing the junior award? No.
yeah, yeah. How do you show up now as a past master in lodges when you come up? So imagine that there's someone who's about to get out the chair now and they're going into the world of past mastership. And how are you showing up as a past master as an example?
I just show up and I said, "How you doing? Pleasure to see you." And I don't want to. The last thing in the world that I would do is somebody going into the East is to tell them what to do. If they ask, I'll tell them, but
Mhm.
I don't want to be the guy that's hey, let me tell you what you got to do.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna do that. I show up in lodge and I go sit down and I talk. I usually visit with some people and I go sit down and I keep my mouth shut unless I got something to say. If it's not my if I'm visiting a lodge, I don't
Mm,
say anything unless
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
asked.
Mhm.
mm,
If it is one of my lodges, I usually don't say anything unless I know that there's something that's really problematic. And then I'll usually go through somebody else, maybe to the secretary or somebody. But I don't jump up in a lodge and start telling them what I think they should do because that's just my opinion. And I don't believe that that's appropriate for anybody to do that. I think you're there to help and support. And if I would never tell a worshipful master, I'm not going to tell you or play games with them. If they ask something, I'll tell them what I think, but I'm not going to play games with them or try to boss anybody around. Oh, look, I'm a past master. That's not that's not, I wouldn't appreciate somebody doing that to me, so I'm not gonna do it to somebody else.
Yeah, we
But
appreciate it. Thank you.
the brothers do understand that you're there if needed. All right. For the
Yeah,
most part. Yeah,
sure.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's what it is. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not there to just, get a free meal. I want to do what I can, and I will help wherever I can, but I'm just not going to try to boss anybody or tell anybody what to do. You know, it's
Mhm.
just
Do you wear a white apron or a past master apron when you go to lodge?
depends on what they have. I prefer a white apron, but some places they don't have them. They got, or a lot of times I've been to some lodges, when I walk in, they say, "Here you go," and they give
Mhm.
you the apron.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, I put what
Okay. I haven't experienced that either. So yeah, I gotta get out. I gotta get out and I gotta get out. You know, we carried a briefcase that has 5 aprons in it.
Is in them.
Which one do you
I
want
Look,
to
t-
I'm
wear?
good.
I tell you what I object. I
Hmm.
object to when they hand me an apron for a 25-year-old and it doesn't fit. I have a I have a problem with
With
that.
that. Yeah.
I got the
And
opposite problem. My aprons are usually too big, so I gotta like clip them together.
He come with a sewing kit so he can hem it.
Oh, we appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. I know we are at the time here.
Yep.
Mark, anything else before we do our last question?
Nah, I'm good. You can go to the last question.
Okay. So, Pastor Master Paul, thank you again for being with us. We'd like to ask this hypothetical question because we think it could provide some insight, just from your perspective on for brothers who are listening right now. So knowing what you know about yourself, knowing what you know about masonry, and knowing what you know about the lodges that you are a member of. Let's just say you pick the lodge. If you were to go back into the East again, and you pick the lodge, but if you were to go back in, not to say that you want to or that is even on the table, but if you were, knowing what you know about yourself and masonry, what's one thing that you would focus on as the leader of that lodge?
that everybody has to be kind to each other. That everybody has to look more inwards and try to make themselves a little bit better. And that we have to stop. There's too much trouble going on all over. And I believe that I would do everything I can to just tell people, um, look inward, make yourself a little better. Don't concern yourself with somebody, what else they think, they say, they believe, or anything. That's not for you to judge them. You judge yourself and you try to do as good as you can. Learn the work, learn what the symbols mean, learn what masonry truly means to the individual. And that's the only thing I can think that I would try to stress.
All right. Thank you. There you have it.
Outstanding. Brother Paul, Past Master Paul, it's definitely great to have you on the show. First, I just want to say thank you for our years of friendship and, answering the questions I may had about this and that and Scottish Rite Masonry throughout these years. Thanks to, our good brother, Brother Roberts, who made the connection, and continued
I
on from
miss
my
him.
old jurisdiction. Yeah, definitely do. Definitely do. From my old jurisdiction to the new, you always been good to me and a good brother. So I definitely appreciate that. Thank you for being on the show and thank you for leaving us with so many things to think about that brothers can take back and learn from. Things such as one thing that I thought was very nice, the 3 parts of initiation. Is the desire to be, that's putting in your petition, desire to initiate, that comes from the laws to actually make the initiation, and the set in the proper setting. No horseplay, brothers. It's a solemn situation when brothers go through their ceremonies. Make sure it's that so it leave the proper impression on them and they can truly be initiated. Um, Effective leadership, having confidence. That's one thing that probably wasn't mentioned too many times in effective leadership, but it's very important. And I've seen it myself. You need to try your best to exude confidence when you're up there in the East to be that example. Plan. and always know that surprises may come. Know that you take charge and actually steer the ship um, in the direction and you may go, and just to go sit in the seat to keep it warm and go for a ride. The goal of Freemasonry in your eyes, and I love it, is to give the tools to make yourself a better human being. That's definitely true in my opinion. Also, getting to know the brothers in different settings, in all settings. Every Sunday you have the chance to meet with your brothers is a chance for you to get to know them, whether it's collation, whether it's rehearsals, whether it's at the African American Day Parade or whatever it is. You still have a couple of seconds you could get to know your brothers. So take that chance to know your brothers. Um, in order to get that's a new thing, something different too. In order to get a Grand Lodge resolution passed, you have to be persistent, brothers. If you say no one time and you think really believe in it, you might have to go a second, third, fourth time. But definitely be persistent in doing it. Of course, we all should know there's all some politics with that, so don't be pissing on Grand Lodge officers if you something trying to get this thing done in Grand Lodge. This is how people work. So definitely do that. And definitely, brothers, like he said, everybody needs to be kind. And most of all, like when we doing all this leadership talk and all the things that we do, don't look outside. Like Matt always said, you'll get to it in a second. Look inside first. You know what I mean? And I was looking on the YouTube thing. They was talking about most of the time that things that we complain about is the things that's going on in ourselves. So take that time and reflect in ourselves and learn the things that get better. So thank you, Brother Paul, for those definitely jewels.
Absolutely. Yes. I want to echo Mark's sentiments for sure. Brother Paul, pleasure to meet you. I don't have the history that you and Mark have, but I hope this is the start of a relationship and maybe I can get to know you a little bit more over the years. So certainly a pleasure. I got to get out of New York State and go travel more. That's one of the key takeaways is travel more. I like to have my traveling man shirt on, so I need to get
Yeah.
out of, I need to go more at different places. So thank you for allowing us to travel through your eyes. So I do think part of traveling in masonry is by being able to live through other brothers' experiences and their perspectives. So thank you for allowing us to travel with you today. Definitely stuck with me that proper setting as a leader, steering the ship, creating the setting, and we talked about creating that environment. I think our last guest was talking about creating an environment where brothers can grow, and I
Mhm.
think that's part of what you were sharing, in the heart of what you were sharing. Thank you for the multiple years of leadership and stepping up to the plate. A lot of brothers shy from leadership. It seems like you don't shy away from it. At least you answer the call, even if you may not feel 100% prepared for it, but you say, "Hey, I'm willing to step up. If I can do it, I'm going to do it." At least that's the impression I get from our little bit of time that we had today. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your time in the craft. Congratulations on 50 years in the craft.
Yeah, did the
Um,
50 actually come yet? Did the date pass yet or no?
It passed.
Okay,
It was
okay,
July.
okay. Cool. Well,
so
congratulations on
congratulations on
50
50
years.
years in the craft.
Look, well, I'll just be 50 years old in November. So I wasn't even born when me and Matt. That's amazing. Even when you think about that, when you came
Thanks a
in,
lot. I
I'm just
appreciate that.
saying, no, I'm just saying that the beauties of Freemasonry of the fact that, we weren't even born at the time in which you came into the craft and we still get the chance to sit down with you and learn from you and appreciate what you have given us tremendously. And we do thank you for that.
Absolutely. So
Mhm.
those that are listening to the show right now or watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to New Orleans Scottish Rite College, New Orleans Scottish Rite College on YouTube. Like and subscribe to that channel. Also, like and subscribe to this channel as well, Masterful Conversations Podcast. Make sure you share
Oh,
this episode.
one other thing that I know he had a bunch of plugs we could plug. Cornerstone Books, especially if you like Masonic books. The look we all know about the what's the Masonic edition of
Robert's
two
rules.
Robert's Rules, Masonic edition of Robert's Rules. That's him.
Mm.
And it's one other book I think that was stating in my
Well, I'm
mind.
And
coming
tell us,
out with a new book
Okay, yeah,
in
drop.
November, the
Mm-hmm.
New Masons book for a
Okay.
guide for somebody who either is about to join or has joined Masonry.
oh, well, you got to read my book then. We gotta
Yeah, yeah,
learn from each
exactly.
other. I got a first year masonry book as well. So,
All right.
yeah, yeah. Let's talk about that for sure. I could
Mhm.
probably I would love to get some pointers. Not probably. I know I can get some pointers from you on the next edition. So
Hmm.
yeah, I had to get your address so I can send you a copy and you can give me some thoughts on it for sure.
Yep.
So absolutely. Are there other anything else, any other plugs? Because this is the point. Plugs
It
in.
just popped up about. No, that should be good, right, Mike? Okay.
All right. All right.
Just
Well,
be happy.
that's it. Be
That's it.
happy. That's it. So with that again, please share this episode. Like the episode, subscribe to the channel, pass this along to as many people as you think will receive value from it. There were a lot of lessons that were conveyed throughout the show today. So we like to say on our show, the world needs leaders, and leadership starts with being able to lead yourself, as Pastor Master Paul shared with us as well. He echoed those sentiments. It's impossible for you to lead other people if you cannot lead yourself. So please take the words that you hear today and through this podcast, apply them to your life, apply them to the craft if you are in the craft, and just try to be better each and every day based on your own development. And with that, God bless.